And we're live! And we don't have to fix the broken Facebook link. That's so great.
Oh
That
no?
that really that's a first.
Yeah, it looks like we are streaming live to both Facebook and to YouTube. Um, Hello and welcome. We are the Story Engine deck. And today is very exciting. Today we are unveiling the final form. You may hear boss music playing because we're unveiling the final form
I
of
know.
the Lore Masters
Where's the
deck.
fire? Where's our like fire flame, like borders and special effects? You know when sometimes people on lives when they do like a thing shows up. I've noticed this. I think on Zooms or something. Sometimes when people do the heart, a little heart actually shows up. Do we have anything like that for our live stream where we could just like set flames going?
Not in StreamYard. If we do
Okay.
completely disproportionate amount of hard work in like OBS, we could have that. But in
Yeah.
StreamYard, what we have is just a nice clean overlay where we can showcase the cards.
I should have had a lighter here to be like, yeah. But yes, final form. I'll join you in the voice.
We could have gotten candles out.
Yeah,
Like
but
a whole
that
bunch of little candles.
that wouldn't have the same vibe. That'd be like final form, ritualistic final form. We're like oh my god, but we could have like summoned each deck and expansion through a ritual circle.
That would be kind of fun. Also, we could have used your metal album as the boss fight music. That would have been fun as well.
That would have been smart.
See, guys, all the ideas that we have after we go live. But welcome everyone to our live stream. We've been we've been off for a little while, or at least I haven't seen you folks for a little while because the last time you guys live streamed, it was just Peter and Eric for Free RPG Day, from what I remember.
Peter and Eric and special friends.
Peter, Eric, and friends.
Many special friends, yeah. That was a delightful live stream. You can still find that on our channel. You can also find on our channel our Gen Con panel that we did. How was Gen Con? Gen Con was a hectic amount of fun. It was so cool getting to meet so many different deck users. But we had Zach, who's our buddy and booth helper and graphic designer, came down with COVID on day 2. We had been masking, so luckily it didn't transmit further than that. But we were scrambling to like find him his own hotel to quarantine in, make sure that he had tests and whatever he needed, and also run the booth shorthanded. So it was a hectic weekend, but it was so much fun. The panel was great. There were so many great questions from the audience. Derek Chung from Omnivore Games was our guest for that panel. Had so many insightful things to say about world building, and specifically world building in the context of a tabletop RPG writer's room. You can find the recording of that on our channel.
Yes, absolutely. And this year, I think what was also very special is that we participated in Trade Day. And Trade Day is an event that happens before the main show floor opens for Gen Con on Wednesday. And you actually have to apply to get in. It's adjudicated because it's specifically geared towards educators, librarians, retailers who are interested in game materials that they could use in an educational setting. And one of the things that we always believe that the Story Engine and Deck of Worlds could do is how they can be deployed in classrooms. I mean, so much so that we have free PDF lesson plans that are downloadable from our website. So it was such a great opportunity to kind of just really show how the deck can work in certain environments and environments that maybe no one even expected. Like I definitely at one point was showing how Story Engine and Deck of Worlds could help people train corporate sales.
Yeah, I got to talk about its use in a therapy context with someone who does sort of post-traumatic stress disorder with veterans. So there were so many cool conversations about ways to use cards that prompt conversations, that prompt different acts of storytelling to be used to like discover and learn things about writing in an education context, to be able to like help unlock people and get them a bit more, get the creative juices flowing in like a corporate setting, or to learn how to tell kind of the story of yourself in a therapy setting. So it was really, really cool to get to learn about different ways that people either are using the deck or want to use the deck and see potential for it.
Yes, but I will say, if Gen Con ever can develop, like so they had this thing at Gen Con where some people like sell items from booth to booth, like they'll deliver sodas to you or, you know, hygiene items if you need them. If they ever discover an elixir of youth or something, because I think 2.5 weeks post Gen Con, I think I'm still recovering from it. I said this last year going to Gen Con because it was my first convention in, I think, 7 years before that. And I definitely had a moment where I went, mid-30s Maroki feels conventions very differently than mid-20s Maroki.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those things that it gets harder every year. But it
it's
remains
okay.
a ton
Things
of
get
fun.
better. We put the foam floors down. That's
Yeah, we're a little kinder to
style.
our knees and
Makes a
joints.
surprisingly big difference.
Yes, makes
Yeah.
a surprisingly big difference. One thing I do appreciate about Gen Con is that they also carpet the entire convention center, so there's less echo.
Yeah.
For folks. So yeah, lots of really cool things. But I know we're all here today because what we really want to show you, and people who came to Gen Con probably got the very first glimpses of it, is all the versions of Lore Master's deck that you are about to experience when the decks come in your hands, hopefully in the next few months. We got our mass production samples, and those are essentially the samples that are more or less the final version of the deck. So when they send you that version, they say, unless something horrific happened, these are the ones we're going to print thousands of copies of.
The only difference is that they print those with digital printing technology instead of the full offset, so like the quality is a tiny bit lower, but otherwise it's like the exact dimensions and specifications of the final will be.
Yeah, exactly. So, you have to be really looking at it with a magnifying glass. And those showed up on our doorstep like a day or two before we left for Gen Con. So it was great. They literally showed up and I like shunted them into my car because Eric and I drove down, and we were able to we had a few people come by our booth and got a chance to just kind of be like, look, the shiny, it looks so good.
We had one suitcase that was basically just Lore Master's deck stuff.
Well, Leviathan boxes are very big. This is, how they say when you can see like the Great Wall from like with the naked eye from the moon? Leviathan box is like that. Like, look at that. One of our Leviathan boxes is way yonder in our backdrop, but you can still see it with the naked eye because it's such a big boy.
They're big. Actually, I did a big, long, like 3.5 hour photography session 2 days ago with all of the final, like this is the version that you guys are going to get product. And shooting the Leviathan boxes required me to like reorient the entire setup because they were so tall and wide that it widened the frame that I had to shoot in. So definitely like visible from space. The Leviathans are visible from space.
Yes. So without further ado, I suppose maybe we can show folks everything that we are, from let's show the final form. Let's unveil the final form. Yeah. I was trying to think out the video game terminology for it, and you can tell that I don't play as much video games when I can't pull up that terminology.
Basically, we just walked into the boss room, and now we're getting the cutscene where the boss emerges from their lair and like finally takes up a weapon of some kind.
Yeah.
After taunting you meanly for the entire game.
Yeah, there's chanting in Latin as the music intensifies. There we go. All right. I hope everybody's pumped. The first reveal is going to be the Playmat because it's the surface that I like to display things on because it gives a nice contrast background that's well lit. So, dun, 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 dun. This is the final Playmat with the final quality of stitching. I'll even do a couple up closes. And actually, what I'm going to do very quickly here... Actually, I'm not going to bother reorienting the cameras because I'm going to open up another window to show you the photography that we did. But really high quality stitching on the edges. It's a rubberized, texturized back for gripping the table so that it's not sliding around. And then the print quality on the front is so beautiful and saturated. High resolution printing, and they really found inks that take to the fabric just absolutely beautifully. And I'll set that down here. And then I'll open up a little window here to show you, as we unbox these things, we're also going to show you the photography of it.
I like the plant accent.
Yeah, so whenever there's a little blur of green in the front, that's me with a little leaf of basil holding it right by the camera to give a blur effect so that I can always have like a tastefully blurred out foreground. So just imagine the entire time I'm holding basil right by my face and getting like so hungry for marinara, like the entire shoot. But yeah,
I've been eating so much pizza lately.
Yeah, I know, right? Because I'm working on the Lore Master's deck. Isn't it obvious? But yeah, no, the print quality turned out beautifully. You can see that in the high-res shots here. Just love how the Playmat turned out. And that's going to be our basis for unveiling. Let's start with the main deck. So, the main deck is a big boy. He is bigger than the story engine.
Well, I can put them all on. I like how Eric's in charge of managing all our comments and also put all the decks on his side that he has to now reach over and hand to me. Why didn't you give me some responsibilities, Eric?
Yeah, it's a big boy.
You know, one thing I really like about the Lore Masters deck is that people have noted when they came to see it that it is bigger than Story Engine and Deck of Worlds. Story Engine and Deck of Worlds are about the same size. I think they are exactly the same size, right? If you stack the two. Lore Masters deck is not. And this is one of those things where I think Peter and I discussed this a little bit because maybe he was saying, like, I think it's good if all the decks remain the same size. It's really good for consistency. It's good for stacking. But there was a part of me that, first of all, from the I guess like functionality of the deck alone, we needed all 8 wells. Like we needed those 8 different cards. We can't, like, if we cut anything else out, it would have just sort of not made the deck as complete as it was. And I sort of am of the belief, well, if the size needs to change in order for the deck to function at its full potential, it's like food, right? It's like, oh, I need to plate the food nicely, and I don't want this like weird brown sauce swoosh. Will the brown sauce swoosh change your life when you taste it? Well, then I guess you're gonna, taste the brown swoosh, right? It's gonna be brown. Deal with it. I mean, this is obviously much prettier than a brown swoosh, but I just also want to say I personally like the size. I think the longer rectangle is really elegant and sleek. Just saying.
Yeah. Definitely, and the 8 card types, like there was no way to compromise on those. They were all necessary for the deck to work to its fullest potential. So, adjusting my like of templated design was it was a necessary step in the direction of this being the best deck it can be. But like the other decks, this has the magnet treasure chest hinge lid, which I'm just absolutely in love with. If you want to give the front view of what that looks like as we open it. I'll open that up, and then we have our guidebook, which is 8 pages of goodness. Lots and lots of different play modes, including play modes for building a timeline out of lore, for building lore with multiple players.
Oh no.
Peter's Wi-Fi is getting mad at him.
Oh.
You had a dramatic freeze for a second, but you're back.
Okay, wonderful. And then we have our 8 colorful card types there with our beautifully colored token sets on top.
I want to eat those token sets. They literally look like candy to me.
I know. It's
candy.
Yeah, like I keep looking at it and I'm like, you look so yummy. And I get a little bit obsessed with tokens for that reason. Yeah. I definitely really like fiddling with
Don't give it to babies because they might eat them.
We got the professional testing done to prove it.
Yeah, they are. All of the components are safe, but also don't eat them. So guidebook in all of its goodness and glory, including the section at the back, which has special rules for building timeline-based lore. That's right here, and for multiplayer lore, so we have some bonus game modes. And then our little conversion chart for how you can combine the decks by substituting some card types for other card types. So they all work together. So it's a really wonderful functional little set. And I'm quickly going to pop open our slides here so I can show you the Lore Masters deck from the shoot.
I'm also going to hold the tokens up, considering Marlene said how much she likes the color of the tokens, and everyone should just see how nice the colors are. We really actually worked on these for a long time because we hummed and hawed over what the colors were going to be. We tried metallics for a little while. All these different things. If you want to keep showing this, I don't know if you took away the slideshow just because of
so we can see the tokens. And also, because Rose asked what the tokens are for.
Yes. So I was about to answer that question while you were continuing to show the slideshow. So the tokens are, when you build the different lore clusters, sometimes those clusters can get very big, right? You can actually have clusters that you can have, like, you can build lore with 1 little cluster, 2 little clusters. You can have a table full of clusters. Then sometimes those clusters might talk to each other, right? Like a little while later, you might say, well, there's a faction, and the faction is looking for this object. This object could be tied to this faction, and suddenly you might realize that the faction ties back to faction number 1, and the tokens can help you sort of draw the different connections so that you don't forget it.
Yeah. Here's an example from the guidebook. There's a little diagram that shows some of those paths being tracked by tokens. And I think we'll have a chance, once we finish the unveiling, we'll probably do some live creation. We're going to have you guys vote on which lore mastery expansion you want us to use and which bridge expansion you want us to use. And then we will do some live creation, so we may have a chance to even use the tokens in that context, which would be really lovely.
Yes.
So start thinking about which of the expansions you'd like to see. Don't vote yet. We'll take that vote in a little bit of time.
Yeah, because for those of you who are new, we have some pretty intense voting systems here, but to the point where we've had to set some ground rules.
If you vote now, it won't count.
Yes, if you vote now, you won't count, but you can start thinking about it.
So I'm going to move that out of the way as we go to our next set for unveiling, which is the lore mastery expansions. This is the little collector box you can get as an add-on, or that comes in the I believe in the all lore tier as well as the conjure. And
the all lore tier does include it. The conjure tier includes them.
So it's a slotting top box like that, slides off, and then you have 3 beautiful expansions inside. So I'm going to show you what that looks like in the photos.
I really like the way the logos are just like in this little line.
Yeah, it's very pleasing. It's very satisfying.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've told everyone again and again that I'm biased, and the bridge expansion box is my favorite box. And someday I will still make myself a custom tote bag.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We can.
Because hey, and you know what? There's a functionality, because when we were carrying all these decks to the convention center, I was trying to figure out a way to carry them that wasn't carrying them in hand. We ended up doing the suitcase because obviously we had the Leviathans, but I've been bringing the decks to certain other like trade shows or business events, and I'm always like, how do I carry this in an effective way? And you know, oftentimes I end up throwing it in a tote bag. And I was like, dang, if it was a story engine tote bag, it would look so much better than this like old Lulu bag or this old like grocery tote bag that I had. So I think I'm going to make myself a little story engine or lore tote bag.
When we get to having like branded convention crates for transporting all our gear, then we'll know we've made it.
Yeah, right. It's like when we got a new credit card terminal for Gen Con, and it had a story engine like written on the receipt when it prints, and I was like, ooh, how fancy. I feel like a real business now and a company now. I mean, Calvin's saying next project, the deck carry case. I mean, it was fascinating because one thing I forget about Gen Con is like those people, they have these like big custom backpacks they use to just carry board games, and they're kind of shaped like a box. So I feel like they've already beat us to the market for it, but you know.
Yeah. Well, we will catch up for certain. I think this is the order here.
Also, if anyone has questions, like the way Rose had questions about any of the decks, any of the fulfillment process, I realized it was one of those things that we get so in the crush of it that I think we just assume that it's normal for everyone to know certain things like freight. I noticed in there's a Story Engine Collective Discord group, which is not actually run by us. It's run by some amazing community members who are just very, very passionate about Story Engine, and we love you for that passion. They create a Discord, and often those folks get together to kind of share their draws, share the projects they're working on, storage system, just talk about Story Engine amongst themselves, and we like to pop in occasionally if there's a question that they have for us. But we were talking about how everything's been packed and we're putting it, we're beginning to pack it up and it's coming soon, and people then said, like, well, how much longer? And we're like, like 2, 3, 4 months, like 2 to 4 months. And everyone's like, what? Like 2 months? Like, why that long? And and then other folks were chiming in, like, it goes on a boat. It travels on a boat, and when it hits the port, there's customs, there's fees, there's unpacking. They has to go on a truck and go to,
It's not quite just like putting something in the mail. It's a big mail.
It's a big mail. It's a very big mail. It is to the USA. I think it is 67 cubic meters of mail. So if you guys want to go and look at what a cubic meter looks like and then multiply that by 67, that's a lot of cubic meters of mail.
Yeah.
And some folks are like, well, why can't you do it faster? Well, we could fly it. I actually don't know if we can fly it.
You can do air freight, but we would have to 10 times our prices.
So unless everyone wanted to pay like $300 for a Lore Master's Deck.
It's like the things get queued up at the port, and there are ways to like jump the queue if you have enough money. We do not have like Coca-Cola money.
Yeah,
we do not have.
We were Coca-Cola. Actually, we talked about. I remember discussing this in 2022. We were discussing negotiation of freight and freight speed, and I remember forwarders basically telling us they basically said, "You aren't Coca-Cola, so you're just not ever going to get it to the front of the queue or get the discounts that you're hoping to get." And I was like, "That's fair. I will not be able to fight Coca-Cola on this anytime soon. We won't be able to fight Toys R Us on this soon, or Walmart." Or anybody. And actually, Walmart has more power than Coca-Cola. So when Walmart tells Pepsi to jump, you jump. That's what I learned during my MBA. So there's a lot of little factors that come into play. And we, when we plan these projects, and this is just like a small guide point for anyone who ever wants to do something like this on their own, whether it's a crowdfunding campaign or whether you start a company, is timing these things is extremely important. Like what people don't realize is when people are planning about Christmas, you're planning it like a year and a half advance because you have, you're thinking about how much stuff you want to bring in, when is it going to come? Like we had goals, and we had goals to deliver Lore Master's Deck at a certain time, and we started planning that last March. Right? Like I'd been thinking about how to get get Lore Master's Deck in everyone's hands by around this time this year, and I started planning it like a year and a half ago, and that's the only way we come even close to making sure we hit deadlines. And that even then, sometimes there's just unforeseen circumstances that happen, right? So far, nothing crazy has happened yet. Yeah. And we tried to plan for every little contingency that might happen.
It's like hopefully no more boats stuck in the Suez Canal. I don't even know if ours goes through the Suez Canal, but
yeah. Well, I mean, but I can only imagine. I don't know if folks remember seeing the news. I think was it last year with the Suez Canal situation?
Year or 2 years ago. I don't know anymore.
Where literally a bunch of boats got stuck, like they got like wedged together.
The Ever Given.
Yeah, and it got completely stuck. And things just stopped moving. I do, wine work, by moonlight. And one of the big things that happened between 2021 and 2023 is that there was, because of all the freight issues, people were telling me there were boxes of champagne and boxes of like champagne, high-end sparkling wine that were literally just exploding in the sun because they brought it all to the docks. No boat came to pick it up. And they just sat there in the heat, and then they all exploded. And that's just the stuff that was happening in the last couple of years. So there's just all those little things that have been happening, and then holiday season and like stuff like that. So anyway, all that is to say, this is like your little education on how freight works. But it was just one of those moments when we read those comments on Discord, recognizing that, oh, I see, it's really like, if you're not living in the biz, you don't really think about all these little things that needs to happen to have a deck in your hands. And we're always happy to answer any of those questions that people have.
Yeah, and we do cover that in the updates as well. We'll usually give a from here's what's next kind of just a little indication of what's next.
It is like nice. Like we do get kind of questions from people saying I haven't heard in a while. It's like, did anything happen? And it's like, at least we're able to say it's like, no, we're on the timeline we always thought we'd be. So
yeah, I'm obsessively staring at those numbers and documents every single day. And one of the things I always try to do too is that, for folks who are new to Story Engine, I'm like the numbers cruncher. So one of the things I'm regularly doing is I'm actually constantly checking in with freight forwarders for what their rates are, what their speeds are, what the insurances are, and everything, so that hopefully we can keep the costs down for everybody in the long run, right? Because as costs go up, it goes up for everyone. But the thing is, it's like, if you spend the time doing all those little calculations, I can hopefully make sure that we can keep that, make the deck really easy and accessible for everyone. as well. So yeah. Anyway, all that is to say, things are coming on a boat very soon to various areas. We are going to be freighting to UK, USA, Australia, and Canada as our major fulfillment hubs. So if you live anywhere in UK and Europe, and the rest of the world, maybe I should backtrack a little bit. Australia will be shipping to Australia, New Zealand, and Asia. And then Canada is shipping to Canada. USA is going to be shipping all across the US and likely will cover Mexico and South America as well. And if anyone who's Brazilian is watching this today, we might need to have some conversations, but I'm sure that's going to be some conversations later on. I won't go into that. And then our UK hub will be shipping UK, EU, Europe, and all those other countries that are not covered.
Yeah, and in fact, should this be a fun time to, if you could in the comments, let us know where you're streaming in from. We'd love to know whereabouts you're all joining us from.
Yes.
It's very cool how international the Story Engine community is, and we always love hearing where people are coming in from. So let us know about that in the chat. And Marlene there had a comment about the bridge expansions, which is actually the next on the unveiling docket. Woo! So this is again the collector box, which inside the company we've been calling the Cigar Box. So
I'm trying to decide whether that's going to get us age restricted over time.
It probably will. It probably will.
It's like, can you imagine we're like talking to 12-year-olds and 13-year-olds in the education class, and we really love this Cigar Box version. Although, like, I don't know, children write lore with like fancy gentlemen with cigars. I definitely was exposed to cigars and like characters with cigars at a young age.
They definitely changed the rules a lot though when we were kids. It was like in the late 80s, early 90s, it was okay. You could get away with it.
You think the captain from Tintin screaming about being an alcoholic is like not okay to talk about now as an adult? But yes, the bridge expansions. I know Peter's opening. Sorry, we're interrupting. Peter, go for it.
No.
Too much excitement.
I once posted a Facebook ad of the it had a picture of the dystopian expansion in it with some like bullet casings scattered around it because I bought some antique bullet casings at like a charity shop, and the ad got delisted because it was considered to be like advertising a weapon. And again, it was like antique spent bullet casings. So yeah, all that to say, if we called it a cigar box, I'm pretty sure we'd be getting some flags.
We're gonna have to come up with like another cool name for it.
Oh, here, and I'll quickly pop this up.
A wand box? Like a magic wand box?
Oh, actually, that does look like a box that a magic wand would come in.
Right? A wand box? I'm
just going to slightly adjust our screen so that you are not covered.
You don't want to just see the top of my forehead the entire time?
Okay, let me see here. Did we do it? We did it.
It's like I'm that character from Home Improvement.
Oh, Wilson?
I was gonna say that's an old reference.
Or like Monsters Inc. Do you remember when oh my God, Sully's friend who starts with a W? Why is his name?
It's
not Wallace.
No, Mike Wazowski.
Yeah, Mike Wazowski. How like he's always
in the pictures
covered by like the logo, like a logo or something because he's so short. But then every time he's like, "Oh my God, I'm in a magazine."
Yeah,
that was such a good joke.
Yeah, no, it was an excellent bit. Yeah, one box does sound cool.
One thing I love about the way we design the bridge expansions too is that they're just like a little bit different than the way we've designed other expansions to date, right? Like this really great kind of diagonal line kind of has this idea of like connection. The aesthetic is just slightly different, and I'm totally into it. Oh, Laverne discovered us through the free RPG Day pack. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Cool. Thank you for finding us. And that's actually really great feedback for me to bring back to the free RPG Day guys. We had the opportunity to meet them last year at Gen Con. They actually came and found us at our booth and then reached out to us to participate. And it was probably one of the biggest things we've ever really done on kind of an outreach with community level. And we felt like very small in terms of like, oh my God, we're right next to like Paizo and some other really big publishers. And we, once those decks went out into the world, we didn't really know like who was seeing them and who was experiencing them. So we're so glad for you to share your story with us. And I'm sure the guys from Free RPG Day would actually really love to hear that story. So I'll definitely be taking it back to them. They're three really great guys.
Yeah, and it's something we even noticed at Gen Con too. Like we know people came up to us at Gen Con and say, "Oh, I saw your deck at Free RPG Day." And it's like once we really had no idea once they went out there who was picking them up. So it is very both gratifying and helpful for us to know.
Yeah, absolutely. Welcome to family. I'm so glad you've grabbed everything since. I hope you've had a lot of fun playing with, working with the decks and coming up with some creative stories.
Yeah. Also, this is a gross misuse of the chat, but I've heard arguments about whether it said wyvern or wyvern. So I would love in the chat for you to chime in with, type in WHY if you say wyvern, and then type in WIV if you say wyvern. And I would just like to get a sense of how people pronounce this, because I've heard.
I clearly showed my hand on that.
Yeah.
The moment I opened my mouth. I've never even heard wyvern, so I'm saying that's wrong.
I've never heard wyvern.
I've definitely heard both. I've definitely heard both.
Peter, I think Peter, if we end up going into couples therapy because of this, it's all your fault.
You can bill it to the company, yeah. It was in the line of duty.
It's like the wedding has been delayed, Peter.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. Well, I'm just getting you back for museum archive.
That wasn't even me.
All right, cool. So next up in our unveiling series here, and again, think about which of these bridge expansions you'd like to see us take for a spin today. Mm-hmm. But next up is the journal. Ooh, the journal's so fancy.
I feel like I'm also learning everything. I'm learning that I'm losing the wyvern debate. Yes, but the journal, the distraction, a journal. Let's look at the journal instead. And actually, it was for those of you who follow us on the Backer Kit update. I remember this was one of those things where we kind of realized a moment as creators just how. It's actually funny that I'm about to talk about this, how like crazy we are about certain things, because we spent ages just like looking at two different purple color swatches. And I think it's funny because your purple, Peter, looks different on camera than mine.
Yeah,
purple.
your camera looks truer to the actual color in person than mine does. Mine's turning like a bluey purple, and it's a little bit more of a reddy purple. Like the one that your camera looks more accurate than my camera for this.
Okay, so for folks who are wondering, my camera's the accurate purple.
Although I think the color balance on this one, on the phone one here, looks good too. This looks true too.
Yes. But we definitely were staring at different like leather swatches, and for those who want to know, this leather, despite how amazing and leathery it looks, oh no, I already hurt mine. It's vegan leather, so no animals were harmed in the making of this leather journal. But we'd like hummed and hawed over that like the perfect shade of purple. And any of you who are graphic designers in the audience, you probably understand what we mean when sometimes you stare at something and you just like change the shade of red or blue just slightly, and you're like Eric actually has to deal with me doing this all the time. I'll be like, Eric, this one or this one? And he's like, what changed? And I'm like, so much changed, Eric, so much changed.
Great question, Kara. It's made from vegans, that's correct. Yeah.
That took a dark turn.
But yeah, the journal shots are some of my favorite shots from the photo shoot. They just turned out really nice. That again is my basil plant making a foreground appearance. Yeah, and the tab system here is great. I'll actually lower this again for a second to show you all. Yeah, so we have tabs for the different card types if that's how you want to organize your lore. There are dedicated pages in each section with areas for recording sort of the things that are unique to this card type that would be important to understanding its role. And this actually would go a little bit further than just what you get through doing card prompts. So this goes a little bit deeper than that. So for example, a faction may not always have key players that appear on the table, but we want to remind you to think about who the key players in the faction are. So it goes a little bit deeper. And then because I really don't like it when like you run out of like one type of page in a journal and then you're getting to get a new one, we future-proof that by the section is full up front of multi-use pages. So you just circle which card type you're doing so that you know that these are your extra copies of, like, say, these turn into extra faction pages. So that if you're creating an unequal amount of each card type, you can still sort of round out the differences by having these multi-use pages. So I'm really happy with the functional design of this. You can also buy refill pages for the journal.
You can buy
so
refill pages as a PDF or as a physical copy. So
Yeah.
you can kind of decide what works best for you. But that's actually one of the nice things is that you can take, like, you know, it is a 3-ring binder, so you can just take it out, you can add to it, you can remove from it. It also makes me start wondering, first of all, like, look at those photos and everything. I remember we talked a little bit about Gen Con. I'm like, how come it took so long before we as writer types who love writing and like love the idea of putting things, it took us this long to make like a notebook accessory.
Yeah, but I mean, the thing about us is we don't do things until we're ready to do it right, and I feel like we did it when we had the like skills to make this like look as dope as it looks.
It's true,
yeah.
but still, like, it was like, it's like when you look at these moments, you're like, oh man, like we really, like, story engine, maybe a story engine journal is going to come out in the future, or a Deck of Worlds journal is going to come in the future, or even just like, I know one of the things I do is like, I like having my notebook, filling it up with everything, but I just want to replace it with like a new one because I don't want to take all my pages out, because I have learned that as we move, especially after university where I don't really carry binders around with me anymore, that all my papers, they just end up crunched in the bottom of my bag at all times. I should never be allowed loose paper. So it's much safer for me to have something like this and have more. So I don't know. That's if I had to think about some additional projects that I would want to take on, then we can make them in like purple, we can make them in red, and we can make them in blue, and we can make them in green. You can tell I do the 5-minute journal and I've picked them up in different colors.
Yeah. The journal is just for the lore deck right now, but you know, we're definitely thinking about doing journals for the other decks for being able to record things. So no timeline on that, but it's definitely on our radar. And then Marlene, yes, last time we did a test of, because actually last time we had the final production copy. It's the same quality and version that you see here. That's what we had during the digital unboxing. We'd actually gotten an early copy of the final. So we did a test using a Coeco fountain pen and a Lamy fountain pen, and both of them took beautifully to the paper. So tested with fountain pens, they work great. We've tested them with ballpoints, they look great. I've tested them with fine tip Sharpies, it looks great, no smudging. So that's all tested and looks very good.
These are the kind of things that we think about as creators and writers. We're like testing things in different pens and papers, and because I mean, it's true though. How many of us get like a notebook or something and writing in, realize it doesn't take to our writing utensil implement the way we want it to take.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Tara with different styles of journals. I mean, that was definitely. Did you not just see me low keying like, I think some days we can do journal. We like loosely thought about it, but I think as Peter sort of has indicated, there's a lot of projects on our docket that we would love to take on, and we have more ideas than time or sense.
Yeah, certainly more ideas.
But always let us know which ones you're interested in, and we'll definitely keep those on the radar. Like whenever we discuss what's next, we always talk about what people have been telling us about. We also really appreciate, we had 600 people who responded to our customer survey where we were asking people like, how do you use the decks? What do you want to see from us next? We did a very short survey. We're planning to do a longer form survey sometime later in the year. And any feedback that you have on what you'd like to see from us next and how you use the decks will be really helpful in sort of shaping which path we go forward in. But speaking of sort of cool new releases, something that we also showed in its full quality last time, but that I'm excited to show you again, is actually the pins. We did a set of collector pins that I'm really excited about, and that really came out nicely in the photography. They were the hardest thing to shoot, because shooting pins, like how much light are you reflecting off the surface of it? How do you capture a reflective surface along with a solid color? It's very hard.
It was definitely one of those. I remember like when we got some of the quality control videos from the factory, that the videos really showcase the pins better. I'm even trying to do it to the screen properly now.
Video tends to do a lot better with reflective surfaces than
not just that, you can really see like the 3D quality of them as well.
Yeah, they're soft enamel, so there's a slight recess to the color and then the raised reflective surface. And in a moment, and then the backs have 2 posts to be extra secure. I'll show you the Story Engine one and the Lore Masters deck one.
And then we have this, the Story Engine. Story Engine mini pin as well.
And the 3 of them assemble together and to form a really cool wheel. And I'll show you the, they don't show up well as a wheel on when the posts are on and they're not attached to a flat surface, but I got some great pictures of them assembled as a little Avengers team that I'll show you in just a moment. Yeah, so there's Weave Your Lore.
And this little story engine pin, if you were a returning backer, if you've backed any of our previous campaigns, this pin comes with your Lore Masters deck order. And I want to say, like, we ran the final numbers on that, and I want to say there was like about 1,000 of you who were returning backers, and that's really, really amazing. Like when those finders came, like I actually genuinely didn't know what those numbers are. We had to run them after the campaign, and when we were finalizing those numbers for freight, it was very heartwarming to see that there's 1,000 people who have been following our journey for the last few years, and it just like really made me feel really warm and fuzzy inside.
Yeah, that was really cool. And actually, with that, we should announce that we have now distributed all of the incentive rewards, so you can check your pledge and see if you have received the promo cards for backing in the first 72 hours or the returning backer incentive. If you believe that you're a returning backer and you should have the pin and you don't see it in your rewards, you can contact us and we'll check on that for you. Same thing for if you believe you backed in the first 72 hours and you don't see that in your rewards now, then now is the time to come chat with us and make sure that we can figure out what happened there.
Yeah, we'll go back and check your pledges just to kind of confirm what other projects you've either backed or whether you backed within the first 72 hours. You can always drop us an email. Don't drop it here. We will, like, the chat moves very fast, but you can always email us at hello@storyenginedeck.com if you have any questions. Eric here, we'll see it. It's just the three of us, guys. Just the three of us. When you send an email, it will be one of us who receives it. Usually Eric who sees it, who's kind of like our frontline support. So if you're usually talking to someone, it's Eric.
Hello.
Yeah, you know what the funny part is, Peter? We like didn't introduce ourselves at all. We just kind of like rolled, like talk about this like bad. One of my podcast co-hosts always likes to say, Muroki, stop burying the lead, because we tend to like jump like so far ahead and we forget. So, but clearly there's a few people who have met us for the very first time through Free RPG Day or through otherwise. We are the Story Engine. I'm Muroki Tong. I'm the CEO of the company. Like I said, I am Queen Numbers Cruncher and and Human Wrangler and the calculator of boats.
she keeps this engine on the tracks.
Yeah.
I keep the engine fine-tuned. I keep the engine fine-tuned with all my multi-tools, and occasionally I chime in with things like whether museum or archive really belong in the deck or not. I will also claim credit for some of the, titles for some of our like guidebooks.
Yeah, the expanded guidebook, which I was going to say, if you want to be able to feel like an old-timey explorer of writing down notes, check out the expanded guidebook for Deck of Worlds. It's super cool. Muroki gave it the name Off the Beaten Path, which I think fully captured the spirit of what it is, which is all these amazing bonus play modes for Deck of Worlds, where you can like roleplay being an explorer, or examine a world that you're building from the perspective of like trade dynamics, or you can build planets with it. But yeah, Muroki gave the name Off the Beaten Path to that, so do check that out, because it has exactly what you're looking for in terms of being able to pretend you're an explorer and take notes, including little form-fillable sections and actually a map box to be able to put your map in.
Yes,
Muroki's also an awesome opera singer.
I appreciate that, Tara. Thank you. I like totally. Yes, did I mention that by moonlight, I also do opera metal, and I just released my second single this summer. So you can look up Mahjong Witch on Spotify.com if you guys want to, or Apple, or wherever else you listen to music. Mahjong being like the Chinese game you play, Mahjong Witch. So yeah, I do that, and I also blog about wine, because apparently that's also a thing I do. But that's enough about me, Peter.
Oh yeah. I designed the Story Engine deck and our decks. I sort of started the company as a one-person thing. It wasn't even really a company; it was just a project that I was working on. And as it grew and the community grew, and being able to get decks out to like thousands of people became more and more of a challenge that I felt like I don't want to do that. I want to just design decks. Muroki came on to head up all of our logistics and fulfillment and strategy. And also, as the community grew and grew and grew, we were trying to keep up with emails and socials and to be able to like hang out in the Discord. We brought on Eric to come on board as our community manager, who I've just stolen I gave you a headline. Why don't you introduce yourself?
I'm the community manager, which means I answer the customer service inbox. I do the social media and a lot of the emails. that if you are on our mailing list, I'm writing most of those emails. And I also sometimes help when we actually do get a chance to make a new deck and do something creative. I help with that as well.
Yes, Eric does work as a writer on the deck as well. He's a very talented writer. He and Peter both have written together in the past with Emberwind.
If you're wondering why we have art from our friends at Emberwind on the Lore Masters deck box, it's because both Peter and I have written campaigns for them, and they are definitely friends of the story engine.
Yeah. And Johannes, a really quick question about the expanded guidebook. It is part of Deck of Worlds, actually, so you can buy it separately on our website. And it was released during our Deck of Worlds anniversary, which happened in May when Deck of Worlds turned 3. And actually, speaking of anniversaries, if you guys enjoy our live streams, we will be having one coming up. I believe it's September 10th.
Yes.
We will be celebrating Story Engine's birthday. And how old is Story Engine turning, Peter?
Story Engine launched in 2019, so that would make it 5 years old. That's
5
wild.
years old.
It does not feel that
it's ready
old.
for kindergarten.
Yeah. It will have to. Well, I have not yet taught it to tie its shoes. I will have to figure that out before.
Still in Velcro.
10th.
Oh no.
Yeah. No, actually, it has little magnet clasps. That's what it has.
Okay.
Just like the box lid.
We're just gonna get it first, skip it entirely.
Yeah. But this is just very cool. Earlier this week, Jesse and coworkers made a cool translucent spiralisk. I'm assuming using the creatures cards from the Lore Masters deck. But speaking of things that are cool and translucent, this is an amazing transition. The next thing we're going to show is the focus sleeves. Hey, look at that. So the focus sleeves, they come in a little package like this, but they really sort of shine, so to speak, when you see them in action. We'll get to use them during the actual card draws, which will be starting fairly soon. But basically, it is a semi-transparent sleeve. It's opaque on one side, transparent on the other. And if you slip a card in there, it'll block all the cues that you're not using. So you only use it when you're doing a primary side card at the center of a lore cluster with Lore Masters deck. It's also compatible with most cards from both Deck of Worlds and Story Engine if you do find that you want to use it for those. But you just slide the card in like that, it blocks all the other cues, and then you're only focusing on the cue that you're using. So it just helps you have a bit more visual focus to your prompts.
And the focus sleeves, I remember, are also designed to be able to hold your cards if your cards are in one of our regular sleeves, which I will also quickly pull and show you because
yes.
I realize that it can be. Nope, those are different. These are just our regular sleeves. They're not as dynamic and look at. They're just clear sleeves. But we realize it can be probably very annoying if someone sleeved their entire deck to need to take that out for their focus sleeve. So it does handle holding your sleeve in a sleeve, so to say.
Yeah. We love it.
Yes.
Cool. So then, motoring along, because I do want to make sure we have enough time to do some card creation. The other thing I'll say, if you are a distractible person, like I have ADHD, focus sleeves, super duper helpful for cutting down noise and helping you focus on only the prompts that you're using. So I agree with Marlene's take here. But next up is, so
we're in like the box, like the full-on in boxes stage.
We're into the boxes, So the tray storage box is basically just the exact same shell that the Lore Masters deck comes in, but with unique artwork. And
it's like a purse. It's like, ladies and fellows as well. When you like different purses to carry your items, this is what this tray storage box could be useful for.
And I think the thing that really differentiates it from our other storage boxes is that because it has the hinged treasure chest lid, it's very good for card accessibility, right? Like you have 8 face-up card types that you can store in there, so if you want to be able to quick grab cards, this is a really good way to be able to do it.
Yeah. It also could be, I almost see it as like the experimental box. Not experimental, but you know how, so there's a thing that they do in the wine world where they call it a toy box, where they actually have one vineyard where they plant various different grapes to see how they all work together, and they just kind of test it out. Yeah. You can almost do this. It's like, maybe you can put like some of the story, and maybe if you're bridging between decks and you kind of need your like workspace, you can kind of have your story engine, like have some story engine and have some other cards here, do your project in it, and then you don't have to get like things, kerfuffled with all your other decks that you have stored in a different way.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's a great way to be able to pull aside little mini decks to do experiments with, or sideboards. Oh yeah, everything that we have is available, by the way, for pre-order. So if you missed the Lore Masters deck campaign, you can go to storyenginedeck.com/lore. That's our backer pre-order page, and all of these items are available for pre-order right now.
Yeah.
So it's a good time to go, and I'll actually add that link to. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, and to Elaine, the expanded guidebook is actually part of Deck of Worlds. It's not Story Engine, so
not Lore Masters deck.
It's not. What did I say?
Story Engine.
Words. It's not part of Lore Masters deck. It's part of Deck of Worlds. You can purchase it on our website at storyenginedeck.com.
Yeah. And for Rose, you can get the focus sleeves at storyenginedeck.com/lore, where our Lore Masters deck and accessories pre-orders are currently available. But next up is going to be actually these turn out to be some of my favorite photos in the photo shoot. Oh no, we're saving those for the end. Don't look, nobody look.
Look away.
Sorry.
I think last time we actually didn't get to really showcase the folding storage boxes because I don't think we had. I don't think we had good models of them yet.
You saw nothing.
So yeah, nobody saw anything. But
that's okay.
I think this is the one that I did first in the photo series. So the folding storage boxes, they come flat, but they fold together like this, and they are just our most economical storage option. They come with 5 dividers, which I'll show you from this one. I'm here right now. So they come with 5 dividers, printed with beautiful art, again from our friends at Nomnivore Games and Emberwind.
They come packaged like this.
Yes. So they unpack like that. And they're really pretty, and I'll show you what they ended up looking like in the photo shoot, because these are some of my favorite photos. The basil really shines in this shot. Look at that, tastefully blurred basil. So we've got, so the hinge opens like that at the top. So yeah, these are our least expensive storage box. The one thing I will say that makes them a little bit annoying to use is you need to fill any part of the box that is not full of cards, because otherwise the cards will move around. So if you haven't filled, if you don't have enough cards to fill the box, then add some empty expansion boxes to pad out the space, or crumple up some newspaper and put it in the end. You'll need to fill out the remaining space yourself, otherwise the cards will jostle around. But otherwise, we have the dividers that have a little bit of space at the top to write which card type you're dividing. None of them come pre-labeled because we want to make sure that you can divide your collection whichever way you want, whether it's by expansion or it's by card type. But yeah, these are a really, really good folding economical option for storage. We already have 4 folding storage designs from the Story Engine, and then we've just added these 2 new ones from Lore Masters deck.
Space efficient too, I would also say.
I will say, when I need to just bring something for work, these are the ones that I grab, because they hold a lot of cards and not a lot of space.
Yeah, our boxes have gone, our folding boxes have gone through a lot. They're probably like the ones that we will replace the soonest, because they're the ones we definitely don't feel as bad, and we like, because like I said, they are our most economical storage box. It is a folding storage box. It's kind of like, it's made out of corrugated board, but we don't mind kind of beating it up a little bit. Like I feel a little bad when I batter and beat the, my collector boxes. Those ones that, I'm always like, oh, I scratched the cover a little bit. And it just happens. Like we take these on the road a lot, but these, we literally just like chuck them in the back of the car.
Yeah.
All the time.
Just throw them in the backpack with all the loose papers. And they fare slightly better than the loose papers in my backpack, but...
Yeah, but they are very space efficient, which is also good when you live in a very small condo like the way Eric and I do as well. So, yeah. And Tara, I appreciate that. Yeah, it's like even though we say economical, because the thing is that nothing we do, we try, like when we say we make something that's a little more price friendly, it doesn't mean that we treat it with any less care. I would say that this folding storage boxes probably actually have caused us more pain for Lore Masters than some of our other boxes, because we wanted to make sure, one, that it matched the previous storage box designs. And I think what this time, I think when the first iteration came out, it was too thick and the cards didn't fit and they got a little jammy. They became like, we actually had to go back and redo the design and redo the materials on it several times, and just so we could have this nice little economic box for everybody.
It was one of the few prototypes that actually needed to be reprototyped. Yeah. And then because we changed,
and actually, I think it was the same for Deck of Worlds. The Deck of Worlds, I think Deck of Worlds, the storage box actually was one of the biggest holdups in production as well.
Yeah. I think, because we actually ended up having to change the height of the dividers, so that we ended up having to change that last minute with Deck of Worlds. But speaking of storage, I think it's time for the biggest and the best The Leviathan box, friends. These are visible. Oh, I'll switch to. Actually, no. Can we do this one first? It matches the slideshow order.
Oh, I was just dramatic, just two holding up. Look, then they can kind of see both. This is just like the first teaser.
Yeah, so there are. Oh yeah, so there are two different designs for the folding storage boxes, and there's two different designs for the Leviathan boxes.
I do realize the face design really shows up well on camera like that. Like sometimes when you're holding it close up, you don't really quite appreciate like how the face shows up, but
it's
like
a bit of a magic eye puzzle.
Yeah, it definitely has magic eye puzzle energy.
Yeah. I also love, I've been like, don't look, and everything is on the shelf behind me.
Well, what can you do?
What can you do? But yeah, these guys, like, I can't show them on this camera because it won't fit, which is why, again, having the photo series is nice. But these
that shows how Leviathan it is.
Yeah, but these have really, really good, they offer a ton of utility storage. So here's the glamour shot. So inside, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 by 3 rows of trays. So that's 24.
People know. Oh, Peter gave it away. I was going to tell chat to do the math for us, but that's okay.
Okay. Yeah, I've removed the challenge. I've unfortunately removed the challenge of mapping it out. If you do want to figure out how many cards can fit there, you can fit at least one expansion, including the box for it, in each tray. So this way you have the option to divide by card type or by expansion or by a combination of both. You'll see something that we didn't have last time because we only had the dummy boxes. We didn't have the nice sort of electrical type anti-static foam in the last version. So this is the final production version, and it does have a foam insert that's glued in. So it's nice because it stops the cards from sliding around inside the box. It also just gives it like a kind of cool, like premium electronics feel when you open it. At least 17 cards. I think you might be overestimating it. I guessed 15 different cards that could fit inside this monster of a box. But these are, I love these. I love these.
And they've been very, very intensely stress tested by Peter. Like I remember, I can't remember if it was like IKEA or other mattress companies when they used to, no, it probably wasn't IKEA, but like they always had like those videos where you see them like punch a mattress with a giant weight thing over and over. It'd be like, this has been stress test to the 9s. This can do it. So there is a video of Peter on our Instagram or at Facebook, any of our social media, as you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, YouTube, Threads, all the thingy bobs. Where there's a video of Peter taking the like very, very, very first version of Leviathan. So this was before it had all the beautiful covers on it, but it just had the shape of it, and just like throwing it up in the air and like spinning it around and around and around again, just to kind of show like that the cards don't jostle and move around, and that the box can handle some wear and tear.
Yeah. I read. Oops, I went to slide too many. I wanted to test that to my own satisfaction. If we were going to spend as much time on the Leviathan as we were, and if it was going to be like our biggest, most all-in-one type solution, I wanted to make sure that it really worked at what it did. And the two things that I was really meticulous in testing were, number one, will the cards stay in when they're flipped around? And it did that in the dummy box. They stayed in place, even without the foam. But I wanted the foam there for safety and to also stop the cards from like banging. And then I also really wanted the box itself to be its own divider system, because people divide their decks different ways, and because I didn't want to print a million different dividers that people aren't going to use, I designed the trays so that when cards stick up, they stick up just a little bit past the tray type. So the icon for the expansion can be seen right here in the corner with enough space between that the icon's always visible. Or you can also see the card type icons there, depending on which way you orient the cards. So store them on their sides, and every card type is instantly visible from a distance. And so you don't actually need to have dividers because it's a self-dividing system with full visibility. That was the thing that I really wanted to solve, because I know everyone stores things in different ways. Some people will sleeve their cards, some won't. So we needed to have the kind of card slot size that would be good for however someone stores their collection. And like figuring out how to do that it took a long time. We got there. It took a long time.
You know, it's funny. It's a conversation that Peter and I sometimes butt heads on in a little bit, because he really tries to be super, super considerate about thinking about like how can it work for absolutely everyone. Not even now, but maybe in like 6 years from now, like you'll be like, well, what if we made yet another deck? And I'll be like, we'll solve that problem when we get there. Because I'm the kind of person where I kind of, when I get something, I just sort of make it work. Like if my storage system came as like the ugliest cardboard box, I'll be like, well, I'll like just stick it in there. Like I'm not really a storage system kind of person. My sister is. Like my sister will buy every kind of modular storage system. Like if you see her bathroom cabinet, like she has like a little thing for lipsticks, a little thing for like Q-tips, and they're all arranged in like a beautiful tiered, like it looks like a shop. Mine is literally like a tray and everything's in it. And it's like, it's my mess. I know where it is. I don't care whether it's like this or that. And Eric's slightly like me, but worse. Whereas Eric just clutters everywhere.
How dare you?
Yeah.
So it's like, it's just fascinating how different minds work for different things. And maybe this is like a really good time to just sort of even give a shout out to all our backers and followers, because Leviathan, I would say, came as a direct feedback from everyone who came on the campaign. Because we actually had other boxes designed and people actually straight up came to us and said, that's not the solution we were looking for. And we were like, oh, well, oh, shite. Like, like, you know, it's like we can guess all we want, but sometimes you never really know. And it was hard, you know, like all creators, like, look, guys, at the end, we're artists. So when people say, well, your design sucks and it's not what we want, you guys didn't say that. You guys weren't that mean. But like when people are like, this is not what we were looking for, we're like, our feelings, what? We thought we did the best thing. We were so excited about this like storage we created. But then like mid-campaign, we actually had an internal meeting and said like, yo, like we need to like figure this out, because if you know, people who are huge fans and people love our, like everyone who's been supporting us and loves our decks, and they're saying this is not it, it's not it. We gotta do something about that. And that's what this came at. This is how this came to be. So and so thank you guys for all of that.
Yeah. Actually, something that I always love to find out about, if you're in the comments, just want to tell us how you store your collection or how you organize your collection. Do you organize by expansion? Do you organize by deck system? Do you organize by card type, or some combination of them? I would love to hear about that. Or do you leave some expansions already mixed in with the main deck? That's information that's super duper helpful for me. And thank you for the suggestion, Eileen. It's on the to-do list actually to create like a legend sheet that's a printable on our website that you can just print off, that has what all of our icons are for both the expansion types and also for the card types. That's been something that has been on my list to do.
Yeah, there's a few kind of projects on the back burner that includes mapping out all our systems, or even just kind of helping everyone know whether they own everything. Because one of the questions we do get a lot of is like, I think I have everything, and then they'll realize, oh, I don't have everything. Like maybe I know some people, especially at Gen Con, kind of get, they're like, I bought everything of yours 3 years ago. What does that mean? Or like, I backed your first campaign, so I think I have all of Story Engine. And we went, oh, well, there's actually more Story Engine stuff that came out with Deck of Worlds. So I know there's a couple of things on our docket to just sort of show everyone what exists across our 3 different systems, the accessories we have, and whatever else, so that hopefully it can kind of serve as a guide point. Like we did create something like that for our storage some time ago, so that people can have a sense of just like, if you have a certain storage system, how many do you need in order to store all our cards and then some.
Yeah, so if you go to storyengindeck.com/storage, you'll see 2 tools on that page. One is a collection calculator, so it tells you how many cards you have and it actually lists every single expansion and booster that we have out one by one. So you can see the full set, see them all mapped out that way. And it'll actually, as you click each one, tell you how many cards you have, how many centimeters of cards you have, sleeved or unsleeved. And then we also have a storage calculator, which helps you calculate how many centimeters of storage you have and how many cards you can hold in the boxes that you have currently. So those are 2 different tools you can find at storyengindeck.com/storage.
I'm like eyeing up the comments right now. I realize there's been some side conversations going on about some of the creative projects that our various community members have, and I think I saw that Moose here saying mixed in Pulp Fiction and keep the backstory cards underneath. But I also noticed Rose earlier saying that they write a story about high fantasy. You know what? I think, well, the one thing about our community that's great is we all support each other. So if you guys have your like projects that you're working on right now and you want to shout them out in the comments, I think you guys should. Like, I think you guys should all follow each other and be friends and find, you know, I know that's what the Story Engine Collective group is on Facebook and on Discord. It's a really great way for people to support each other and share different things. And what Peter said about your storage system, like, if you guys ever have pictures of how you guys organize things and you guys want to send them our way, we love sharing them on our social media. We've seen people create like the cutest divide, like their own custom dividers, their own stickers. We had someone who like reconfigured their whole desk. I think they actually like.
I can confidently state that, like, if you think nobody wants to like see your organization system, you are wrong. Everybody wants to see your organization
system.
Satisfying.
Yeah. They continue to be like the top performing content that we post on our socials, or that appears in the Story Engine community run Facebook group and Discord. So definitely always feel free to share. And speaking of this great coming together of things and also of organizing all the cards, I organized all of the cards into a couple last photos of our bundles. Yeah. So I just wanted to showcase the whole family. So this is all of the new cards in the Lore Masters deck system together in one shot. So this is kind of the all lore plus all of the bridges together. I think one of these is also featuring Basil Leaf. Yeah, there we go. Featuring Basil Leaf. And then also, I got some pictures of the whole. This is the Conjure bundle. This is all of the new stuff together. So the journal in the bottom left there, all the expansions, the collector boxes, the Leviathan boxes, the Lore Masters deck, and then the 3 little pins there in the bottom right. And just a big happy family. It was nice to get it all together.
It looks really good. Yeah. I really like it. Good job, Peter. The decks look really good together.
Yeah. I'm really happy with how it all came out. And again, shout out to the Basil Leaf. Real VIP yesterday. Just real. And honestly, that's just a little photography hack. You can go grab a leaf off a tree outside as well and just bring that in, or like grab a fern and you can hold it right near the camera until it blurs out. And it's a great way to get some really beautiful soft foregrounding without spending any money on it.
If you ever see any of my wine content suddenly have soft little green blobs in the front, you'll know it's because I decided to get basil leaf inspired. That being said, all my basil died last year because it got infested by bugs. So I'm going to have to find myself another leaf. But that's okay. Peter knows, and I think a few of you know by this point, that I'm like a crazy plant mom, and I own substantially too many plants. I am not allowed more plants. But that means other people should just gift me plants so that Eric can't tell me that I don't want to get more plants. But yes, I was going to say something about the deck family too. Oh, like I actually want to give a shout out to Amo, who's our project manager over at Yoda Games, who made our decks as well, because anyone who is getting a Conjure bundle, we tried something new where we pre-bundled everything, and they actually packaged it together over at the factory to sort of reduce the amount of mistakes that might happen at our hubs. Also because they can do it all custom, and like they built like all this cool custom packaging to make sure everything gets like fitted nice and neat and protected together. So anyone who gets a Conjure bundle who got all lore, you'll be getting a version of that as well. And in honesty, I'll be interested in hearing feedback from you folks about how that worked out for you as well.
And speaking of herbs, I was going to say, very cool that Rose is working on a book, Rosemary Sage in the Man in Black. Very herby, very herbaceous. Love that. Yes. But speaking of what people are working on, I think it's time we pulled out some decks and did a little bit of creating ourselves. So I think we're actually going to start with a vote on which Lore Mastery expansion we want to crack open today. So to recap, you've seen them already. The Lore Mastery expansions include the Deities expansion, the Emblems expansion, and the Namesakes expansion. Deities is for creating gods and spirits and adding those as a new lore type to your world. The Emblems expansion is for adding symbols and symbology and symbolism to your world using cards with different icons on them. We also have cards of every card type so that you can use image-based prompts instead of word-based prompts for what type of thing you're creating. And then we have the Namesakes expansion, which is for giving unique and lore-filled nicknames to any card type that you want. So in the chat, we'll count down 3, 2, 1, vote when it's time to vote. And you can vote for either deities, emblems, or namesakes in 3, 2, 1, go. Eric Maroki, do you have a favorite or a thing that you've just been jonesing to try out?
Like I was gonna say, it's like if we go with emblems, then we could just pick an emblem that looks like an herb.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true. Emblems would give us that chance.
I've always been definitely a huge fan of emblems, and right now vote seems to be going for namesakes. And
I think
hilariously,
Namesake's already won.
and interestingly, namesakes has become like the one that I've been more interested in recently, and I think it actually had to do with demoing Deck of Worlds at Gen Con. There was just something about like adding names to the worlds that really kind of transform how you perceive the world we were building for Deck of Worlds, and it just shows the whole thing about power of names, right? And so many books and fantasy often talks about the power of names. So thanks guys for like hearing my mindscape and voting namesakes for me. I didn't send cute bribes to everyone pre-live or anything.
I'm gonna be looking for the bribe line item in the annual budget.
The annual budget, you'll just see like this weird item that just says like
it'll be hidden as like food. It would be hidden as herbs.
Yeah.
It's just
herbs,
like this.
Basil.
This was meal prep for the company.
Meals and entertainment. Basil.
Basil. This is such a small detail, but it was supposed to happen for Deck of Worlds, and there was actually an error at the factory, and this time they got it right, and we got it right, and I'm very happy about it. Thumb cuts, a little thumb cut, so that it's so much easier to get these boxes open. I acknowledge our expansion boxes are harder to open than they should be. These ones are not, because they've got little thumb cuts, and it's great, and I'm very happy about that. Amazing. Okay, so then let's get started. You know, I'm feeling a bit excited about creating a creature because of the spider lisk that came up earlier. That's what I mentioned when they created this with their coworkers. So, bye, Marlene. It was wonderful having you join us. Thank you for joining us so late.
Thanks,
so yeah, I think let's go ahead and make a creature. So there's two ways we can do this, and I think I'm gonna start with the creature type of namesake cards, because there's two different types of namesake cards, just to sort of explain how they work.
Yeah, Noel says that too. This is just like a really key moment to show you that you do not need to go in order for Lore Master's deck at all.
Yeah,
I know like Story Engine and Deck of Worlds, there's a little bit of linearity where you start with an agent or you start, and you don't have to, but like some of the guidelines. But Lore Master, it's lore, right? So at this point, you're fleshing out anything you would like to flesh out in the world. And in this case, we're going to do a creature.
Yeah, so we'll start with a creature. And there's two different ways that the namesake deck works. One is you can take a primary lore card type, just like any other lore card type, and it actually tells you how to construct a name using other lore cards. So this turns the entire main deck of the Lore Master's deck into potential parts of nicknames, which is amazing because it like infinitely increases your number of combinations, or not infinitely, but exponentially.
Yeah.
Or
we have no calculations for how many combos you can come up with for Lore Master's deck.
No, truly, we have to count the number of icons per. The math gets so messy. It's a lot. It's a lot of different. Like every card in the main deck becomes a namesake card now, which is.
I feel
really
like I should submit it to my brother or my father as like a weird experiment because they're both engineers and crazy number types, and I could see them running some crazy model just for funsies.
I'd be very curious to hear the numbers back on that. The other thing that's very cool about this is it's got a section of modifier cards. So modifier cards are cards you can apply to any other card to give them a bit of a modification, give them a bit of a twist. And these are modifiers that are designed to be parts of nicknames. So it turns all of your primary lore card types into the other half of a nickname, either as a descriptor or the receiver of a descriptor. All this to say, I'm making it sound more complicated than it is. Every card in the main deck becomes two different potential types of nicknames with every card in the namesake deck. It's just a ton of recombinability, and you get some really cool combos. So let's start by using a primary lore card type here. So we can either make a crab, a mammoth, a berry, or a python. And in the chat, you'll be able to vote on crab, mammoth, berry, or python in 3, 2, 1, go. And we're going to say that the first thing to get 3 votes is the one that we go with. So speed is a factor here.
I guess a berry is less of a creature.
Yeah, well, creatures include anything that's a living organism, and berries, especially when they're stone plants, are part of a living organism. So we wanted to be able to create things that included the fungal and plant kingdoms.
And to be fair, berries, depending on the kind of berry, blackberries are pretty like invasive, scary creature-like things.
So delicious.
They are so delicious, but it was one of those moments where I want to say it was like in Sleeping Beauty that they actually said that the brambles that like the princess to fight through are blackberry.
Oh, did they?
I feel like I like saw that in some distant memory. And I remember at the time never really.
Bramble is the UK term for blackberry, I believe.
And I never fully understood that until I was in Victoria, BC, where I learned that that blackberries are an invasive species there. And when you see them everywhere, you realize why. Is because once they grow wild, it's basically impossible for any human being to navigate through them because they are so thorny. They are so thorny. And they said when you can't just cut it back. When you cut it back, it actually multiplies like a hydra. You have to burn it in order to get rid of blackberries.
This is going to be a research assignment for the chat if you want to do it. One of the YouTube videos that came out around the time of Deck of Worlds was shot after I had done a ton of blackberry picking in North Vancouver, and my hands are visibly scarred from the brambles. So if you can figure out which demo video on our YouTube channel has cuts on my hands, that'll tell you which one is the bramble special. Looks like the crab won, by the way. Another organism that fights back when you try and eat it. So yeah, and you can see here, this is the focus sleeves that we just have crab as our active cue. Awesome. So next we are going to draw either a location or a object card to give it as part of a nickname. So this, I'm gonna actually jump that one. Ooh, this is fun. The card that was on top had the word ocean, and ocean crab is really boring. So I decided to nix that one. So we have a more interesting draw.
Now.
Okay, you know what? All right. We'll go back.
Well, isn't it us who regularly say that if we grab the thing that like doesn't seem challenging, there's challenges in it? Like, oceans are deep places, and it doesn't have to be just like a regular old ocean. It could be other ocean.
It's the ironically named ocean crab.
Yeah, because actually in this world, all other crabs live on land. There's only one species that can go in the water. Ocean crab. But okay, so we're gonna have 8 options to vote for here to nickname our crab. We could have the ocean crab, the barrow crab, the watchtower crab, the repository crab, the balloon crab, the staff crab, the bandana crab, or the communicator crab.
Bandana crab. Oh my god.
I love the balloon crab.
3, 2, 1, go, guys.
3, 2, 1, go. Go ahead and vote.
3, 2, 1, go, guys. While Peter and Eric and I
we all debate. Yeah,
I'm picturing a crab, basically like a pufferfish crab.
Oh, it'd be really interesting because crabs, we think of them as being so like hard-shelled, but if it was like a soft-shell crab, where literally it's soft enough to like inflate or change size.
Yeah. So far, balloon is there's so many options. It's hard to count.
And the question is, the votes are coming in. So namesake variants of the primary card types tell you which card to pull. So it's here we can see that we need to pull a location or an object based on those icons. These modifier namesakes are generic, so you actually draw that after drawing another card to give that card a nickname. So you would draw this at the same time you draw a modifier card, and that's all explained in the guidebook.
Yeah, I know we're jumping. So for anyone who's very brand new to Lore Masters deck, we might be jumping a little bit ahead in our demo today just for the sake of time, because Lore Masters can be such a beast. But that being said, if you go back through our YouTube videos, through some of our earlier lives, we have a few, and I think we've labeled them pretty clearly. If not, we're happy to send you a link where we talk you through the demo from sort of like the very first point all the way through to finishing a lore cluster, so you can really get like a really detailed how-to video of how to use the decks in all its iterations. In fact, we have like a whole live stream dedicated to the expansions, or each expansion almost, right? We have a whole live stream dedicated to the bridges, so you can really kind of get like a chance to experience how all the decks work in play. What won? You're showing
nothing won yet.
Oh,
tiebreaker. So, Maroki,
thank you for keeping track.
I've been waiting. I've been watching, and we're even right now.
I think Maroki likes bandana.
I think bandana also has 2. I'm counting Alan's banana crab as a bandana. Oh, I think balloon just got over the edge.
Balloon has it. All right, so we've got the balloon crab. That is our species there, and this actually takes up one of the slots for secondary cues on this card. So I'm going to go ahead and draw now cards from the regular main deck, because generally speaking, if you draw a primary lore card type from the namesake expansion, I wouldn't recommend then drawing a secondary card from the namesake expansion for that. It's designed so that it probably won't come up if you do shuffle it. If it does come up, you just treat it as like a second nickname. This crab actually has 2 different names as a species. Actually,
It could be like balloon crab of the tunnel deep, and it would just have so many. Who was it that said? I feel like it was you, Peter, who said you really, really love your like super, super long-winded, detailed names, and this is the perfect opportunity to do that, I guess.
Actually, yeah. Let's go ahead. I'm gonna draw another namesake card, and we're gonna put a hat on a hat because sometimes that can be a lot of fun. So here's what a namesake card looks like on the secondary cue side for a lore card. So there's always one cue that actually has nothing to do with nicknames, and that's so that if you end up with this situation where you've drawn a namesake card on top of a namesake card, you still have an option that just works like a normal prompt. And then you have 3 options that combine a very specific type of nickname that's designed to work with the card type. So we could have the woolly crab, the silk spinner crab, the big mouth crab, or a crab that travels to a specific location to die. Very poetic.
That's
I know the
cool.
Goth Maroki is into this mysterious death crab.
Really like, yes, the whole like elephant graveyard situation, but for crabs.
So go ahead and vote on rather just so we don't have the chat full of the word die. We're gonna call that one travel. So travel, woolly, silk, or
we can get banned on
big
TikTok.
Mouth. Big mouth. And you can vote in 3, 2, 1, go.
They travel to a specific location to unalive.
To unalive.
Yeah, the unalive crab. Yeah.
I was discussing TikTok in a crowd full of marketing people at an event earlier this week, and a lot of them are a bit older. None of them are definitely TikTokers. And I was talking about the specificity of language, and like it really hurt their brains a little bit.
Cool.
What is this? Is it did travel or silk get it?
Travel.
Travel got it. Yeah. So we got, and actually, I like the idea that when the crabs die, they like balloon up, like the gases that from decomposition make them float to the surface.
Man, that's the gross. I was thinking about they were balloon crabs and they actually deflate when they go into a graveyard, which seems a little less gross than them bloating up.
I like that gross. Okay, so now we actually have we have a link queue so that we can find out which location they are traveling to, where it seems that they go when they need to die. So we'll draw a location card. I think in this case I'm going to draw one from the main deck just so that we don't branch off too quickly. So we have here they go to an armory to die. They go to a labyrinth to die. They go to a trench to die. Or they go to a knoll, which is like a grassy hill, to die.
Yeah, it'd be interesting that they like choose to exit the water to die. It's almost like
yeah.
I'm trying to remember what I feel like it was from some lore, but it was it was like the whole idea where it's like they were about to die, so they said you might as well bring me to this place because I've never seen like the sun before. Or something. It was like people who like.
I feel like some vampires go out that way with like.
Yeah, I think the vampire lore definitely has done that before. Where it's like I'm about to die, so I might as well see the rising sun kind of energy. But it's almost like crab. They can't live out of water, so they like if they know they're about to die, they just kind of like take themselves to a grassy knoll.
Yeah.
I do kind of like the implication of Calvin's as well, that it's like they go to a specific location to die. Maybe it's not something that they're voluntarily choosing to do.
Oh, it'd be very interesting if they were like a magically engineered species created by like a seafood chef, so that like when they are ready to be harvested and eaten, they come on in. But let's find out. Let's have people vote on armory, labyrinth, trench, or knoll. In 3, 2, 1, go.
The interesting thing about the knoll too is that they've done it for thousands of years. Like one of the things like we talk a lot about is in wine. I bring wine up a lot, guys, because like I do a lot of wine stuff by night, but we talk about terroir a lot, right? And like there's a lot of areas, especially in Chablis in France, where they have a lot of compressed like seashells. And you can taste it in the wine because the root systems of the vineyards go into these soils. So it's like if they go into this knoll and they compress over the years, it's like it kind of like feeds like the grass or the orchards that grow in the area.
Well, I think the terroir of a giant pile of crab shells would be very interesting. I like that suggestion from Moose, and in fact, Noel won the vote there. So it'd be really interesting.
Selling everyone on my ideas, yeah.
it's interesting because Lafroig Scotch, the story goes that the reason that some of the smokiness, besides the fact that it's peated to all heck because it's an Islay Scotch, the peat that they harvest for Lafroig is at the lowest level of all the peat harvested on an Islay. And the story goes that there's actually like decomposed crabs and crustaceans that form up part of the peat layer, and that's what gives it some of its signature sort of like smoky, salty flavor. I think if you chemically do an analysis, the peat is actually responsible for very little, or rather, that type of element of the peat would be responsible for very little of the flavor, but it's a really fun story. And I love
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of conversations about whether the term minerality in wine is a true term or whether like wine experts are full of crap. I feel like the Lafroig stories. Apparently, I can't say Lafroig story in the same word, in the same sentence. But it's also one of those things. They're as valid as the way we perceive it. So
yeah, I agree. Well, let's learn a little bit more about our balloon crab here. So this is now just a card from the main deck. This is some more secondary cues. Whenever you build a lore cluster, by the way, you start with a primary card, which is the bright, colorful side of the card, and then you draw multiple. Oh, they're full of crab.
yeah,
and then you draw multiple secondary cues to fill out all sides of the card. So we're just drawing some more secondary cues here. So momentarily you'll be signaled to vote for a background where the balloon crabs were used in the building of a location. We could have the balloon crab feed on a specific type of object or material. We could have the balloon crab ossify, crystallize, or transform upon death, which would be really interesting because that would change the way the knoll plays out there. Or a trait where it undergoes molting, shedding, or metamorphosis. So we'll be able to vote in just a second for building, feeds, crystallizes. If you're typing in crystallizes, start typing it now because it's a long one. Or molting. And you'll be able to hit enter and vote in 3, 2, 1, go. What are you vibing, Maruki?
You know what I'm vibing with crystallize, but one thing I also wanted to say was just you said it earlier in some ways too, when you were saying you were pulling secondary traits from the primary deck because you didn't want to branch out too far. It's one of those things where I realized that when we build lore, you could really go deep on things, and sometimes it matters and sometimes it doesn't matter. And I think, because if someone asked us this in the world building panel that we did during Gen Con, where they asked us how much do you have to research a world before it's enough, right? And it's actually a really valid question, because when it comes to doing things like storytelling, you don't need to be building out every single iota and nook and cranny of the world unless you really want to, but sometimes it's not necessarily serving the purpose of your story. And the talk about world building was just saying like how accurate you need to maintain something in order for your world to be believable, but also recognizing that sometimes that you don't need to kind of have every single nook and cranny fleshed out to get the meaning and the theme of your story across. So I was just thinking about this for the crab a little bit when you were grabbing your secondary traits and from the main deck. It's like, yeah, we don't necessarily need to branch out ad infinitum.
It's actually, if I was gonna use like a famous example, it's probably one of the issues people had with some of the later George R. R. Martin books, Sword of Ice or Song of Ice and Fire books, because it's like by the time in like book 4 where he's devoting like half the book to like these Greyjoy characters, like those 2 books had some sprawl in terms of like what the chapters were, and it's like it seems like that sprawl also led to him losing focus just a little bit in terms of like completing the story he originally set out to tell. And it's like his world building is fantastic. Those chapters are incredibly well written. The world building is amazing, but it definitely there's only so many avenues you can explore and still get to the end of the story you started.
Yeah, and one of the goals with, I think, Story Engine Deck of Worlds and Lore Masters deck is to give you enough prompts that you have enough to be able to tell a story there without giving you so much that you're like bogged down in the details. The goal is to give you enough to get the story up on its feet, which is what matters most. Speaking of getting the story up on its feet, we have the chance to bridge out now. I think what we'll do is actually pull a bridge expansion card to fill out the last side here, which means we have a chance to bridge to either a Story Engine card type or to bridge to a deck of Worlds card type. So let's go ahead in the chat and vote for either Story or World, and we'll pick which of these 2 expansions. we are going
Yeah,
to use.
and to anyone who wanted to see the story world expansion, too bad.
Yeah, because we're building a lore prompt, we'd have to.
Guide.
Yeah, we'd have to restart from the beginning with another thing, which I don't think we'll have time for today.
Occasionally, this becomes a dictatorship.
Yeah, but you can find examples of the story world expansion at use in our previous live stream that showcased the bridge expansions in depth.
I think, yeah, World got it, I think.
World's got it. Okay. So to briefly go into the way the bridge expansions work, because they are super duper cool and they do something very unique. Each bridge expansion comes with 2 cards from 2 different deck systems. So because we have the lore world system, 30 of the 60 cards are Deck of Worlds card types, and these cards all have cues that link to Lore Masters deck card types. So if I was building a world with Deck of Worlds, I would occasionally be prompted to create a creature in that setting with some extra cues coming from the cue in the card about how that creature would fit into that setting. So it lets me bridge from Deck of Worlds to Lore Masters deck. And it even does that with the Advent cards, so I can have story hooks based around the content I'm creating with Lore Masters deck, which is great. And then we also have cards of all of the card types of Lore Masters deck, which have icons from Deck of Worlds, so that you can bridge out to use Deck of Worlds prompts to further explore your lore. So what I'm going to do is draw a secondary cue from the bridge expansion, which is going to help us learn more about our crab, and will require us to use a Deck of Worlds card to complete it. So I'm drawing a rando here. So this crab could have a background where it was culled or displaced by an area's settlers, and we would create a little fraction of a location prompt for that. We could give it a trait where it's linked to an area's namesake. So the crab could be the reason that a certain location has the name that it does.
Ah.
We could have a trait where the balloon crab has excellent camouflage within a specific habitat, and we create that habitat using Deck of Worlds cards.
The balloon forest.
Or it could be linked to a notable attribute of an area. So we would, again, create a little Deck of Worlds location and give it an attribute card, and that would be linked to why that attribute exists there. So you can go ahead and vote for culled, namesake, camouflage, or attribute. And you can vote in 3, 2, 1, go.
I like culled or namesake, and if I'm looking distracted, there's been this black thing that's been floating outside our window for a while, and I thought it was like a crazy black bird that was just hanging out. Turns out it was a black plastic bag, but it's just been coasting eerily in the wind for the last
We're
hour.
5 stories up, so we don't normally see things going up.
Yeah.
Like that.
Or with such darkness. So it was very intense, and I occasionally saw it out of the corner of my eye, and when we're talking about crabs and creatures, my brain started going into like weird spaces. What one? Namesake.
The namesake ones. It's linked to an area's namesake. So we're gonna draw a region, and I gotta pull from my Leviathan box prototype on the ground here. So just give me a second.
Yeah, and while Peter's doing that too, like I know a few of you folks at the beginning talked about how you discovered us through Free RPG Day or through Lore Masters deck. And since we're bridging over into Deck of Worlds, I'd love to hear which deck systems do you have right now? Do you just have Story Engine or Deck of Worlds? Do you have all three of our systems, or soon we'll have all 3 of our systems? Did you find us through Lore Masters deck, and now you're maybe going back and seeing what Deck of Worlds and Story Engine is all about? I sort of want to hear like how you're journeying to, in using our decks and how they've been deployed in your storytelling or your games or like your gaming campaigns. I'd be super curious. I would love to hear kind of how you found us and what you have right now to use. And of course, if you have of course, guys, like I said at the start of the live stream, but if you guys have like questions about the decks, about us, about anything, this is usually the best time to ask, because we're right here, ready to answer your questions or help you out, so to say.
Awesome. I love that so many people are excited about the whole system. I think especially with the bridge expansions, you really get to see how they all work together. Speaking of which, so we're gonna have 2 votes here. One is for which either the region card or one of the cues from our landmark cards. These are what Deck of Worlds cards look like here. So you can vote for fields, ridge, or archive for the location whose namesake is linked to the crab here. So go ahead and vote for fields, ridge, or archive in 3, 2, 1, go.
I guess field is like close to a knoll. If I wanted to tie to the knoll.
Yeah. The ridge could be similar. And then archive is just fun because that's a spicy word around these parts. On kind of our museum versus archive debate. Someone voted for museum. I love that.
Rolling us.
Yeah.
For those of you who are keep wondering about the museum archive conversation, inner joke that we're bringing up, so one of the big things that makes our decks so special is we spend a lot of time balancing the decks, and it's just incredibly important for us that we, make sure that, like, first of all, like, we do not duplicate words meaninglessly. Like, there's definitely some duplicates across our deck, but they're on purpose, obviously, because how they're used in different situations matter. But we find, we work really, really hard to make sure that there are things like not just duplication, but redundancy, and making sure that the cards kind of balance each other out so that when you're using a card and there's all these different attributes, that they don't lean too heavy in one direction, that you kind of get a balance of the way these different attributes work. And one of the biggest ones when they were deciding what words we should keep or lose, one of them was the great debate between museum and archive. And I think it ended up being a 2-hour it was passionate, blazoned conversation.
I think in truth it was probably about an hour, maybe 45 minutes, but each time we retell the story, it gets longer.
We fought for 3 days at the top of a mountain in a lightning storm.
Yeah, we found the place where Gandalf fought the Balrog and booked it so that we could have our own showdown.
Yeah.
Eric
does... like Peter wasn't taking sword classes yet at the time. It's like he's taking it so he can win the next debate.
That's exactly right. I was the one who was cast down into ruin in this fight. But yeah, next time I'm coming with a blunt sparring sword. Cool. Okay, so next up we're going to vote for the namesake, actually. So this is going to be paired with ridge. In my mind, the knoll and the ridge are the same place. They just have different names. So we can go ahead and vote on the high ridge, the ridge that dreams, the ridge of burdens, the ridge of orchards, the rogue ridge, the ridge of rifts, the ridge of children, the ridge where mushrooms grow. So you can vote for high, that dreams, of orchards, of burdens, rogue, where mushrooms grow, of children, or of rifts. And keep in mind that whatever we're voting for, that namesake is somehow linked to the crab. So we just want to make sure we've got a reason why that namesake would be tied to the presence of the balloon crab there. So go ahead and vote in 3, 2, 1, go.
And the age-old question from Keith, museum versus archive, why not both? Well, when you have 300 cards that are double-sided with 4 options each, if we said that for every single time we had to have a debate, this deck would have never, ever been made. And like when there's hundreds of thousands of words in the universe, sometimes you just have to make the choice. And I guess what it really comes down to is if it really matters that much to have the other word. This is the other thing about being a creative person, right? Is that whatever words exist in our cards, hopefully that if that word doesn't completely jive, that when you create your own lore, you're going to choose the word that works for you, right? Like we've actually even discussed that when it comes to like the word apprentice versus student. They have different meanings. But if you picked a card that said student, maybe when you write your final iteration of your story, you use the word apprentice because that's the word that matters. That's the word that truly resonates more about the idea. But it's the student that drew out the idea of the apprentice, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
The Ridge of Children.
I believe mushrooms did win.
I'm sure it did. That was me answering the question, then looking up and being like, ooh.
So, and it makes sense that a very unique fungus could grow in a place where there are so many decomposing bodies of these balloon crabs. So in my mind, the ridge and the knoll are the same place. In fact,
oh my god, are they actually called balloon crabs because there's these like big bulbous mushrooms like grow out of the bodies?
That's what I was just thinking.
Of the crabs?
Ooh, that's so cool. Yeah, I love that. I absolutely love that. And what I'm going to actually do is use our link tokens here to just show that the ridge and the knoll are actually the same place.
And maybe they're like a delicacy.
I was gonna say they're definitely a delicacy. It's basically just like a savory souffle, just like a mushroomy seafood flavor. Just already, you don't even need to like make it rise with all those complicated baking techniques. It's just like go pick a mushroom and now you've got your like crab mushroom souffle.
That sounds so good. I'm really, I may not have it. So right after this live stream, I'm running off to fencing practice to go do sword fighting in a hot field. And I think I'm going to finish this out rather than taking time to eat. But now I really want seafood, so I'm going to spend 2 hours in a field just wishing I had some kind of crab souffle to eat.
Yeah, and in that particular field, you're going to see if there's any dead crabs as well.
Yeah, there's nothing like a good hot day field crab that you just pick fresh and eat.
Honestly, if you were out on a hot day and there were a bunch of dead crabs, it would probably smell horrific.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah. In fact, I have a friend who biked through, I want to say Costa Rica, and there's this one particular path on a hill where apparently that particular road falls right within a giant crab migration path. So around a certain time of year, there's a lot of crab roadkill. Oh. And no matter how they clean it off, it just reeks the entire time.
That's horrifying. I'm trying to find the pictures that you guys took of dead crabs around the creatures cards for Lore Master's
deck.
Yeah, we did do that, didn't we?
Yeah, we did do
that's
that.
where I thought you were going with that
Those
story.
crabs did smell.
Yeah, I might have so last year when we ran the Lore Masters deck campaign, Eric and I also happened to be on Cape Cod on his family vacation during the time. So occasionally we would go for walks on the beach, but my brain was constantly in like creation mode, and we might have definitely harvested a lot of horseshoe crabs and like a lot of they're so freaking cool. It was my very first horseshoe crab that I've ever seen live or dead. So the dead ones, I was like, ooh, like these would be really great to use as like backdrops and stuff. But we definitely collected them and left them simmering in a corner of a garage in like hot days before we like found time to take photos of them. So, but you can kind of see, you can see the tail. If you look at the top right, the little tail for horseshoe crab.
And the bottom right, there's like the shell.
Yeah, the shell and the body.
So I appreciate the lengths to which you go.
Horseshoe crabs are, because I've been going to I grew up in Massachusetts. I've been going to the Cape forever. So I'm like, oh yeah, horseshoe crabs, they're everywhere. And then you get old and you're like, oh, they're not everywhere.
Also, horseshoe crabs are like a real live mythical creature because they have this bright blue blood that apparently could be used to help with cancer treatments.
Oh yeah, so I believe they evolved copper-based blood, and evolutionary biologists are realizing that it was probably a separate evolutionary track. That it evolved separately as opposed to being divergent. Yeah, which is wild. I might be misquoting a thing that I heard on YouTube from the the channel with the Green Brothers, PBS, one of the PBS ones, but I believe that
they're also incredibly harmless. They're also incredibly harmless despite how they look with their tail, and we've also been advised regularly, like there are a lot of PSAs out there that says if you see the horseshoe crab on the beach or whatever, like don't harm them, don't beat them up. They're actually they're like super harmless. Like they look scary because they have basically evolved from dinosaur territory, but their stingery looking tail is not a stinger. It's like a little rudder thing. It doesn't actually sting humans. They don't really bite or claw or anything, so leave them alone, please. Yes. Anyways, that's my little tree hugger PSA right there.
Be nice to horseshoe crabs.
Be nice to horseshoe crabs.
Well, I think it's time to learn more about our crabs' habitat here. Or not the habitat, rather, but the place that they go to die. So we already know that it's called the ridge where mushrooms grow on one side, but it also is sometimes referred to as a knoll, and I think we can give that knoll a nickname using the namesakes expansion. So I'm going to expand this lore cluster, which is when you pull a card out, you rotate it so that your active queue is facing you. In this case, I'm also going to put it inside a focus sleeve. So this is nice. The other thing that's very cool about the focus sleeves is if we ever pulled out and expanded on ridge, they are compatible with most cards from the deck of worlds, but we could actually pop ridge in here, and then we wouldn't have to look at archive. And this could become the center of its own lore prompt, like that. For now, I'm going to leave this tucked here. But
I was like, fix the arrows, Peter, fix the arrows.
all is well. Everything is fine. Nothing's on fire.
If there's anything about Moroki's particular like neurodivergent quirks, is that I'm like very OCD about angles and arrows, and that's my engineer brain talking.
I've seen when you do your photo shoots for wine, there's a level of precision that I know that I don't have the patience for. Okay, so let's go ahead and give a nickname here. In fact, this is the one that we pulled earlier. So these are going to be fragments of a nickname. Some of these words come before the word, so this would be cackling plus the card that it's describing. So it would be the cackling knoll. It could be the puppet knoll, the bloodless knoll, the knoll of inventions, because in this case the card it's describing would come before the fragment nickname. And then we have 4 options on the back as well. The knoll of the dawn, the knoll of thresholds, the trader's knoll, or the sky knoll. So one more time, you can vote for cackling, puppet, bloodless, of inventions, of the dawn, of thresholds, traders, or sky. And you can vote in 3, 2, 1, go. And I think we're going to do the first 2 votes this time.
The thing I like about
we'll do first to 2
thresholds is that it kind of implies it's almost like a threshold to another world.
Yeah.
So like if you die, you like pass on to another location. It's kind of like the veil, right?
Yeah. Sky works that way too as well. But I like of thresholds.
I think Sky won.
Yep. We're going to 2.
Well, the sky knoll, especially with the balloon crabs. Oh, and it'd be interesting if at some point, like if a stiff wind could send like all of the balloon spores up into the sky. So it's part of the reason it's called the sky knolls. It's the place where that like ascension happens. Yeah, and just to remind you, so the namesake cards here are versions of the modifier card. The modifier cards always have an arrow that shows you which way your lore web expanded. So we know that the crab was the first card in our lore web because it doesn't have any modifier cards. That means it was the first card, the seed card. But when we expanded our null outwards, we drew a modifier card, and we put that on the side between the card it expanded from, pointing towards the card that it expanded to, and that little arrow tells us that this is the way our lore web grew. And that means that at the end of a session, if you take a picture of your lore web, you can always backtrack your thought process from your first card to your final cards by seeing how your lore branched out. It's just a fun little design detail of the deck.
Yeah, that's actually something I didn't really realize. But you're very right. You're very right. Like that, all the other cards that have modifiers on them, you can tell where they're coming from, and it helps point back to the center of the cluster.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty nifty little design detail, and it's just good for helping you recreate your thought process and remember the decisions you made in order. I also like, that was a fun pitch there for the puppet. The mushrooms could be like the zombie fungus, the cordyceps fungus that actually like takes over the brains of ants and makes them do things. It'd be interesting if that was that's why they're called puppets. Cool, well let's go ahead and learn more about this knoll. I think let's draw because no, we can't give this thing 3 nicknames, can we? Is that
I think for the sake of time, we probably should. Yeah. We can, is what we're telling every one of you, if you guys decide to do more. But maybe for the sake of time, we should tighten up to what we have right now. And Rose, in answer to your question, it is the creature can be whatever you want it to be.
I think we are a little bit in cosmic horror and territory.
I definitely have an idea of what the thing in the box is, but I've never asked because I think I made up my mind a little while ago of what it was.
I can tell you that the name of the art piece from the Nomnivore Games team was named Alignment. That's what they called it.
There you go. You can take that and come up with whatever you will from it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are continuing to.
Yeah, so basically I was going to say, do we want to draw a card from the namesake deck as the next card and give it a 3rd nickname, or do we want to draw a card from the main deck, or we could do... Actually, let's do the bridge expansion again, so we haven't gotten to see that one quite as much. We'll do one more bridge expansion card.
This is probably a really good moment for everyone to realize that you can really take it however you want to take it as well.
Yes. Yeah.
But clearly there's several options, and there's really no hard and fast rule how you want to choose to do it.
Yeah, yeah. And in fact, the number of each card type's designs, you can just mix all the cards up together if you want, and the random distribution will get you a nice variety. we could have a background where this knoll is misunderstood, it is a misunderstood origin story or a misunderstood claim to fame. We would use origin cards from Deck of Worlds to find out what that is. Could have a trait where it's known for a text, a work of art, or a lore fragment, and we'd actually draw cards from the lore fragments expansion to figure that out. The lore fragments expansion for Deck of Worlds helps you come up with in-world lore, like a local tavern song, or a page from a local guide to flora and fauna. So it could be known for a particular text, work of art, or lore fragment. It could have a trait where it's known by two conflicting names, and we would draw namesake cards, but it already has two conflicting names, so that one's kind of already covered. Or we could just straight up draw an attribute card and give it a trait straight from the attribute deck, no modifications, which just lets us mix and match more card types so that we can.
I like that. I saw that. I actually hadn't seen that card yet, and I was like, I like that. I like that this was a decision we made for card design.
Yeah, sometimes you don't need to. Sometimes you just keep it real simple. You can use those cards to describe these cards. You wouldn't even need to do a modification.
I think what I like about it too. Sorry, we'll let people vote first before I continue.
Sure. Yeah. So go ahead and vote, and then we'll discuss. So you can vote for trait, misunderstood, or fragment. So and I'm going to skip the nicknames one. So vote for trait, misunderstood, or fragment, and go ahead and vote in 3, 2, 1.
I think what I like about this card too is that it almost is our nod to creativity and talking to people. It's like when we create things, you don't need those things, and in fact, we even did it to our own decks. It's like when sometimes you read some novels, and there's a few of them that I think have done it, in my opinion, pretentiously, and some have done it deliberately, where you get a chapter where it's really short. It's like you have all these chapters, like everyone assumes a chapter needs to be 10 pages long at least, and suddenly you get a chapter that's only half a page long.
Yeah.
Because it's very symbolically saying to you, like, that's all you need for this moment. Yeah. And I've always thought them really powerful whenever I used to read them in, like, when they're well used in novels. And I feel like we did the same thing here. And I also like how everyone else agrees. Yay.
We'll go ahead and draw a attribute card. So this is an attribute card from Deck of Worlds. It says to draw 2 and pick 1, but in this case, I'm going to just pull 1 for the sake of time. So we can go ahead and vote that the knoll has high taxes, that they have regionally specific dyes, that they are the source of a valuable ore, or that the knoll has iconic lava formations. Ooh, adding lava to the mix of our weird little crab death hill would be very interesting as well. So you can go ahead and vote for high taxes, dyes, ore, or lava. You can vote in 3, 2, 1, go.
It's like ore certainly fits with the strange makeup of this knoll.
Although weirdly, I almost want to see it as an area that's taxed high because it has a delicacy, so they realize they can make money, or maybe because it takes a lot of local money to maintain it, or like because it's an area that's either like has historical significance or cultural significance or like environmental significance, so they need to tax it in order to ensure that it like. And if you want to live in the area, you get taxed extra high because you're directly benefiting from living in the area. It's like, when you are living in like the nice area, like a really nice like the top of the mountain or something, and it's like versus it's like in order to live there you get taxed higher.
I do like that a lot actually, especially because the fungus can't grow if it's getting harvested constantly.
Can we corner tuck it? Is that like, are they adjacent?
No, high taxes is opposite side, unfortunately.
Okay, all right. I acquiesce. My story will have high taxes.
That is fair. And again, you can always, even if you end up burying a queue, you can still keep in mind as you do your world building. In this case, you're asking people to vote for high taxes is a bit of an ask. Democracy shows that doesn't always work. But a source of valuable ore, I think, is really interesting because, as was mentioned by Will here, from the crystallized corpses of the crabs works really well, and as Eric was pointing out. Awesome. All right. Well, we have 2 draws left.
And you know what? I don't know. Maybe I'm Canadian. High taxes is the reason why we have our healthcare. So, in spite of the fact that locally our healthcare has actually gone downhill, but I will not get political on this live stream.
Don't get me started talking about Nova Scotia healthcare. It is rough at the moment. All right, let's do another bridge card here. I think that'd be fun. So, oh, interesting. I want to pick a fun one based on what we already have going. Okay, we'll go with this. So, It could have a mythical origin story or claim to fame, and we would draw an origin card for that. It could have a secret or forgotten name, which is interesting. That would add something new to the mix, and we would draw namesake cards for that. It could be a quest location, and we would actually draw that's the icon for the Adventure Prompts expansion. So we would go ahead and draw that. Also, I just was sorry, I was scraping paint off the wall in my house earlier today, and I've just realized I have gunk under my fingernails and it looks gross close up on camera. And then a trait card where we would actually draw a advent card and pull a trait out of the queue from the advent card. So you can go ahead and vote for mythical, secret name, quest, or trait. You can vote in 3, 2, 1, go.
I feel like if people voted secret names, you would get the third nickname that you were basically asking for.
The one true name.
The one true name.
Forgotten name in a forgotten language. Trait. Quest. Mythical. Quest. 3. Have it. So this is fun because we actually get to pull another expansion card really quickly. And luckily I have that expansion handy. So I think I do. I do. So we're going to choose between 2. And actually, we've never really gotten to showcase the Adventure Prompts expansions before.
Streams, I don't think.
I think that they appeared briefly in the Deck of Worlds unboxing video I recorded in 2022, but I think that's the only time that they really show up in our stuff. So
I always forget how different they are.
Yeah, they are very different. I needed to come up with a new sort of design format for it to work. So the top of the card has your quest name, a simple nickname for the quest that you can use for inspiration. There's a core prompt in the middle. So a trickster god was set free from their prison and needs to be recaptured, or pests are destroying a gardener's beloved flowers and they need help saving their garden. And then there are sockets on the other 3 sides of the card for customizing the quest using either elements from the world you've built or by using random draws from the story engine deck. So in the case of the trickster god, we pull cards to figure out what does the god want. We draw an engine card and then either a agent or an object. We'd find out where the god is hiding or going, and we'd figure out where or with what the god can be captured. For the garden variety pest card here, which is the one about the gardener and the pests, we could describe the pest with a aspect card. We would find out what would repel or remove the pest, and we would figure out 2 different sources of repellent, all using story engine cards. So we won't fill in all the sides of these cards now, but we will vote between Garden or Trickster God. Garden or Trickster God in 3, 2, 1, go. And while you're voting, I'll answer Keith's question. Yeah, so what we wanted with the Adventure Prompts expansion was to basically look at what have been some really successful and interesting shapes of prompts for Story Engine deck, and how can we be a little bit more specific by writing some really cool hooks based on those, while still leaving some room to customize those with individual pieces, and especially making sure that the pieces you can customize with each prompt are something or a question that can be answered by the prompts you've drawn for Deck of Worlds. So we wanted to work with Story Engine deck and Deck of Worlds, and we wanted it to be a ready to go full quest that you could read this and not even draw cards if you wanted. You might already know exactly how you want to use it, or you could do this extra layer of customization. So they needed to be designed differently for that reason. Because there needed to be a main title, there needed to be a core prompt, and then we needed to have sections to attach customizations to it. So the design followed the goals of the form in this case.
I think Trickster won.
Trickster did win.
Trickster won. Okay, amazing. So we would tuck that under the quest location card here, and that becomes part of our prompt. And if we wanted to, we could expand this as its own adventure and just treat it like a full adventure prompt where we would draw more cards to fill that out later. Lastly, we need to draw one more trait for our location here. So in this case, I'll just draw a card from the regular deck to send us home. So this is a regular card from Lore Master's deck. So our knoll here could have a background where it was the site of a major defeat for a faction. We would draw a faction card and an event card. It could have a trait where there's a secret cache of something located there, and we would draw an object card and a material card. We could have a trait where it's built in harmony with the surrounding environment, or a trait where it's the breeding ground of a different creature, which would take us full circle there. So go ahead and vote for major defeat, secret cache, built in harmony, or breeding ground. And go ahead and vote in 3, 2, 1, go. Eric, do you have any favorites from this card? Anything that's speaking to you?
The site of a major defeat for a faction.
Secret cache.
I do like secret cache of something, I think, for this.
Yeah, secret cache would be fun too.
I think that plays well with both the composition of what we've done, like how many people actually know what's underneath this knoll. It's like a trickster god. The cache could be a prison.
Oh
yeah.
So the like it's like you
someone cached a god there.
Yeah, basically.
Well, it looks like Built in Harmony won the vote here. I have to say thank you, Raymond, for being our photo finish camera. I love that you're there at the finish line to call it out when we hit. It is actually hard to count the votes while everything's happening, so that is a very helpful service to have in the chat. So thank you, Raymond. So Built in Harmony with the surrounding environment. Perfect. And I do feel like we have actually a very tight ecosystem here with the way that the fungus grows from the crabs, the way the crabs grow and crystallize upon death, the way that it has 2 different names based on if people are thinking about the mushrooms that grow there or the crabs that die there, or the fact that those crabs ascended to the sky when the spores go loose, and that's why they're called the balloon crab. This was actually very tight, all the pieces tied together, and it's very interesting that there's a trickster god in hiding here. It would be a really, really cool place to send the party to have to like hunt through the mined out tunnels of this massive mound of dead crystallized crabs covered in spores to find the hiding trickster god, who could get up to all kinds of shenanigans like releasing spores or collapsing tunnels on them. I think this is an adventure waiting to happen.
Sometimes the dead crabs are alive.
Oh, yeah. Actually, and also live crabs are coming up and crawling over all the time. So that would be another sort of element for the storytelling. So, if anyone ends up running an adventure or writing a story set here, I would love to hear about it. I'd love for you to share the details. So take this as a freebie if you want to use it. Otherwise, this has been the Story Engine deck, Lore Masters deck, final boss fight, Latin chanting.
Hold up everything. It's like flying.
Just grab all the boxes and pile them on screen. This was a tremendous amount of fun. Thank you all for participating. Thank you for your suggestions for the lore. And if you have not yet picked up the Lore Masters deck or you saw an expansion that you liked, you can pre-order everything that we showcased today at storyenginedeck.com/lore. Yes, and yeah, Knoll with a K, not Knoll with a G, not the hyena-like monster thing, but in fact a grassy one. And also, our next live stream is September 10th for the Story Engine deck's birthday. We're going to be doing some talking a little bit about the development of the deck and then doing some live creation with you all again, so we would look forward to that. And a question from Tara: will we do another live when we start shipping out to everyone? What do you think, Maroki? How do you feel about our back of house logistics as we figure it out being live streamed?
Probably no one wants to see that. It is a lot less interesting than you think. There'll be a lot of cardboard, a lot of tired people, and a lot of hands.
Maybe we'll shoot a couple of quick videos from the packing.
Yeah, we might shoot some videos. Maybe maybe either just before we start fulfilling or after we finish. We could probably take a moment and chat with everyone. Oh, and I'm talking to myself apparently. Ooh, we're getting the infinite loop of hell right now. Is that coming from you?
It's coming from me. So I was disassembling the card camera, and when I pulled the mic out, it started broadcasting from the phone speaker.
I almost feel like that's exactly the energy though that's gonna happen during fulfillment. It'll feel like an infinite loop. We will all be very tired. I like how Tara's bribing me with wine. May or may not accept that. My tastes are very snobby though. It has to be paired with an iridescent blue crocodile and has to be a vineyard that's grown on a floating waterfall that is high up in the altitudes where we have the special grape. I think that we created a microcosm tourist ecosystem, but we'll see. How about that? You'll do a very gentle we'll see, because I think the priority when we start shipping to everyone is making sure we ship things out to everyone, versus stopping for a live stream, unless our Canadian backers will forgive us for basically delaying their shipping because we're too busy live streaming.
It's like we could just put like a camera and film us like packing boxes.
It would
for,
just
like,
be
the
us bleeding.
It would not be an entertaining live stream.
It would be people like just watching us bleed sadly and scream every so often when we get like a horrible paper cut. So for all you Canadians out there, we're hand fulfilling your orders here in Canada. If people are wondering why. So Tara, to your question, the reason why it's gonna be hard for us to fulfill from shipping out is because actually we hand fulfill in Canada ourselves. We have some amazing partners who help us around the world, but in Canada it's actually just us three. So if we were filming at any point, it would just be us bleeding sadly into the camera and yelling occasionally as we get paper cuts. So.
Yeah, if we do a live stream, I think we're going to do it muted so that you only see us screaming, but you don't hear exactly what we're saying.
Yeah,
but, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
Yes. But join us for the September 10th live stream. It'll be a lot of fun. It's been a little while since we've come back to Story Engine. Actually, no, I guess you guys did it it's been a while since I've come back from Story Engine. They did it during Free RPGA. But it'll be nice to kind of celebrate the whole journey of Story Engine because it is the deck that started it all. So please join us for our live stream on September 10th. If you subscribe to our YouTube channel at Story Engine, you can get notifications, or you can also sign up to get notifications for that live stream in particular, or you can follow us on social media, or sign up for our newsletter. So lots of different opportunities and ways that you can follow us. Other than that, I think thank you all so much for joining us. We love doing these with you all the time, and we will see you all hopefully in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Thanks a lot, everybody, and bye.